Hi, Jim here, and this is the Honest Filmmaker podcast. Today I've got with me filmmaker Chris St. Croix. How you doing, Chris?
Doing great.
Good, good, good. Good to have you on. So I've got a lot of different things to dig into here, but we'll start with the movie that's in the posters behind you called Killer Content. So give me the pitch for the film first so we understand what we're talking about. Tell me the story.
Okay, Killer Content is a thriller slash horror movie in the sense that I found out, interestingly, that a lot of people think that Misery is a horror movie. I think of it more as a thriller, but I found in the talking to the marketing people, they're like, "Oh, this is a horror movie," and I was like, "Well, let's do what we got to do," you know. But I guess the pitch was an influencer is taken hostage by one of her super fans, but finds out that things aren't exactly what she would think they would be. Things turn out a little differently than she planned. That's the simplest version of it. And I feel like if I could talk to anybody about it, it's sort of Misery for the social media generation.
Yeah.
It's a contained thriller. And if I'm just going to spoil one thing. There's not a lot of there's no boobs and there's not a whole lot of blood. It's more about intensity and getting in your face and just kind of really trying to make that contained space as sort of terrifying in a way that seems. Part of the pitch also was that it's going to hopefully feel real and not fantastical. Like truly, if you don't even have to be an influencer, but if you were in this situation, I mean, we have people, ex-boyfriends and girlfriends and whatever, take people or even if they're verbally, attacking them. I think a lot of people can connect with this story, and that was part of the appeal for me. Was I think I have a phrase: "There's a lot of meat on that bone," and sometimes in the genre world, we want to be served up popcorn and blood and guts, and just I don't care who the characters are, just give me those kills. And in this case, I was like, well, we don't have a ton of that kind of stuff, so like, how do I get people? And it's story, story, story.
Yeah, absolutely. And then looking at the concept for the film, so you just said it's one location, and I've seen it, and it's very much like there's usually like two, three characters on screen. You've got your lead actresses in almost every scene.
Oh yeah.
So was that by design, or was that the story came to me and then it kind of, how did that come together?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen your film, which, by the way, is really cool.
Thank you.
Props. I think they could have snuck it in as a special Christmas episode of Black Mirror. Not that it took place at Christmas, but you know how they have those special one-offs. I actually thought it was really cool.
Thank
And
you.
whoever did your effects is also on top of it, because I'm always looking for effects people. So anytime I see great effects, I'm like, so go watch this guy's movie. It's on Tubi. Speaking of, mine's coming on Tubi on the 16th of November.
Right, and is that the first, before we go on to the other stuff, is that the first release date for it, or is it already on Amazon? Is it?
Oh, it's been on since September 16th.
Right.
So it's anywhere where, in America. We just made a deal with a UK distributor whose name I'm going to butcher, but it's Playon, Plaio. There's like a video game / streaming throughout Europe. And so it's going to be coming out. We just don't have a date yet. But I did beg my distributor. I'm like, I need the Tubi date.
Yeah.
And then like a good filmmaker, I was searching for my own movie online to see what was happening. And I found this coming soon on Tubi, November 16th. And sometimes nobody knows, nobody tells anybody, and so then the distributor's like, oh, cool.
Yeah, that is a tough one, isn't it? Especially when you're talking to your cast and they're asking, when's it coming out? And you literally have as much idea of them as they do, and you've got Google at your disposal to try and figure out when it's coming out. So sorry. So let me keep you on track. We'll come back. I definitely want to talk about sales distribution.
You to do that for me. I'm the king of tangents. I love it. I love it. All right. So yes, it was backed up into the limitations or what we had to work with.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of scripts that I'd written. And of course you ask, what do you want to do next? I'm like, this one. Well, you don't have the money for that one, that kind of situation. And in this particular case, I actually found that I needed to write a whole new script because the number that we were dealing with was not something where you could have the big special effects and all these kinds of things. And I was like, well, look, I need, and I think this is the number one thing to learn until somebody hands you the keys to the kingdom is don't try to stuff 5 pounds into a 1 pound sack. You know, it's the reverse. And I think you have a better chance at making a better movie that way. And I've always worked that way because I haven't been given the keys yet to the kingdom. So yes, I reverse engineered a contained thriller. And I'll be honest, I didn't set out that year to make a contained thriller. I'd sort of been in that world a little bit and I was like, I want to break out, you know. And there are 2 locations in this movie. So, you know, I don't want to, you know.
So
there's a massive 2 locations.
2
But
locations.
I knew we were primarily going to be in the cabin. But again, Misery was sort of the litmus test. And I was like, they left a few times, but in general, we really remember everything that happened in the house.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have that sort of Stephen King. I don't have that whole system going. So how can I do something that excites me to work on something for a year and a half, you know, through post and everything that's going to be exciting?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, who is the modern day, you know, in the old days, authors were famous. No, I mean, there's some famous authors now, but mostly now it's movie stars and influencers. And so I said, okay. And I had met Katie and I meant, oh, she could definitely play an influencer. And then it just kind of went from there. And then you just had to find the location, which is, I don't know if it's been your experience, but to me, that is the linchpin. Actors, yes, but those locations that will let you film a movie. And we're in Tennessee, which is very conservative. My Nashville itself isn't so conservative. It's a little more liberal, but nobody, you know, there's tons of sort of family films and etc. And most people don't want screaming and yelling and curse words and all that kind of stuff. So finding the location was the linchpin. And once I did, I was like, okay, time to go to town. And it was written. So it was written for what we were able to do.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that allowed me more freedom. Because then you don't feel like we had to cut things and do stuff like that. Because as writers, we always we know, oh, we have to stay at this level, but we can't help ourselves. We got to write that scene that would take 2 days to shoot, but we don't have it. You know, everybody's been there that's really made a full feature where you're like, oh, why was that scene so hard to shoot? That was supposed to be the easy one. That's the beauty of the amorphous of filmmaking. You just never, from the page to the screen, it becomes something else, and from the screen to the edit, and that's kind of the magic and the fun of it, I think.
Definitely. So you've written this, you've got your main location in mind. Definitely good advice, and that location really can make or break your movie sometimes, especially if you're looking for it.
How'd we do? Did it break us? Did it make us?
No, it didn't break you. And the one thing
I gotta ask, I'm in my bubble here. I don't know if, you know, you hear from people, but yeah, if you like the movie, look, if you didn't like it, I'm fine with that too.
I did. And I was just about to say what I was impressed with, because obviously I see a lot of micro, low budget stuff. I was very impressed with the quality, the production value. So that was something I was going to ask you about, does that come from your experience? Does that come from the DOP, the crew? How did you ensure that you had that production value on screen?
All the above. I mean, at this point, this is my third feature. My second feature was anthology, so I split it with another good friend of mine and director, David Buchert, called In the Dark, which is it's its 10th anniversary next year, and we're going to try to figure out how to release that. And everything is so different now in the release world. That's one of the biggest things I experienced making this movie, was releasing a movie in 2015 and releasing a movie in 2025. Night and day. But we could talk about that. But your question was,
my question was about production value. So
I mean, yes, absolutely. None of us, no matter how little you have, it's the new rule. It has to look as good as you don't get to say, I only had this much. Technology does allow you to level the field a little bit. The thing that you have to bring on your own, and of course, other people have to decide whether I did this or not. But you have to bring that story that makes people stay and watch, because as far as I'm concerned, everybody can look good if you even pay attention to what you're doing at all. There shouldn't be any, unless you're looking for that aesthetic, unless you're looking for that 90s camcorder, DIY sort of look. But some of us are really trying to keep up with the Joneses, in a sense that we're trying to make a living at this, and production value is like number one. I think when it comes to horror, because people, like you said, you see all these movies, you put it on, you're like,
you can tell, yeah, instantly if
and
something's low quality, it's a
yeah, we
real
couldn't,
turn
well,
off.
but we couldn't, and I don't mean monetarily, we couldn't afford to do that. Josh Shreve, the DP, he couldn't afford to do that. He'd made movies that looked beautiful. My other movies, I think, looked really great, and I'd made music videos that looked great. And over all the years, you sort of learn tricks on how to, okay, we don't need a 30-foot truck filled with lights in order to make something look beautiful anymore. And pre-production then becomes the way to truly deliver on that. For the lack of a better term, I actually like this. It looks like a real movie.
Yeah.
That's what we needed to walk away with. The amount of time and energy we were putting into this, we needed to walk away with something that looked, felt, smelt, it sounded, everything like a real movie.
Yeah.
And that was the number one thing for all of us, because we're all trying to sort of move the chess piece. Is it going to be across the whole board, or is it just going to be one little moving? So that was a non-starter. Like, I knew I'd seen his work, Josh, and I was like, I got this music video. It's really tiny. That'll show me two things. It'll show me whether we can work together, and that'll show me whether he's, because some people need to get paid thousands and thousands of dollars to get out of bed. And I'll take those thousands of dollars. But I mean, I was going to get out of bed no matter what it was. I needed some cohorts that were going to do that, and that is hard to find. And we did, and then I really knew I could deliver something that was worth doing all of that for, essentially for nothing.
Yeah, I think the way that really comes into play is on streaming platforms, because it's very easy to have a high-end looking poster, especially with people started using AI stuff, although I think people can still sort of spot that. Anyone can have a high-end poster, and that when you stick that film on, those first 5 minutes tell you immediately the quality level. And then the other thing those 5 minutes tell me immediately, and I was interested to know whether this was something that happened in post-production or that was in the script, was that you opened with kind of a bit of a thrilling sequence, shall we say. So was that a decision in post-production? Was that always in the script that you were going to give that a little bit away at the beginning?
If anything, it probably was the scene that sat there, and then the rest of the film.
Oh, really?
In a way that I knew what I wanted to make. What's the way? I'm not going to give anything away, but what happens in the beginning ends up letting us know more information about the end. And I knew what my twist was, and I was like, well, I know I can write that page and a half, you know what I mean, and just really get myself. I don't know about you, but I write, and then I'm like, oh, now I feel like I can write in this world. I can have the characters start to talk to each other. I know who they are, and that comes. I'm an outliner. I'm not like a open page and just feel it, baby. Like, I just can't do that. I need to know the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Yeah.
And adventure happens on the way. But yeah, I'm definitely an outliner. Are you an outliner?
I am. I'm a save the cat person. Okay. That is my main that structure. Yeah, I know that's probably similar to a lot of other structures, but that for me helps me unlock stuff. And yeah, having that, even if that's not what I end up sticking to, that
for sure.
book, I think, really helps remind me of certain things. I love the way it's written, and the follow-up books, the way they kind of take films, pull them apart, and get you to understand the different moments within them. So yeah, I think I am a bit of I do like to plot stuff out. I've tried the whole blank page stuff, but then you just end up going on. You're all over the place, and the poor person has to give you that feedback. The first person who reads that version is like, "My God, what is this thing?"
No,
What I was going to say about your point about that opening. So that's interesting that you had that in the original script, because
Yeah.
I've done that myself. I've had to go back, especially the world we're in now with streaming is trying to hook people in. Even if you can keep them just for that first advert that appears on your film in the first 15 minutes, and you
Mhm.
see all budget levels do it to try and hook people in. So it's interesting you'd put that in to
But
start with.
they've been doing it forever.
Yeah.
It's always been like the beginning of Scream.
Mm.
I mean, you can cut that out and start the movie,
Yeah.
but by the end of that, you're like, oh wait, now I get what this is.
Mm.
It's not really comedy, but it's sort of funny, and it's or you know they that's I think of it also a classic opening that in the horror world. Um,
Oh, it sets all
but
the rules up. It sets everything up for for the rest of the movie for you.
yeah, and again, now has it gotten super hyper concentrated now where it's not an 10, what is that opening? Probably it feels like a 10-minute opening scene
Mm.
in Scream. Now it's got to be 30 seconds, you know. Now that's more like for for Instagram and stuff like that. Uh I think the most discerning viewers in the world are horror thriller genre people because they are so steeped in the history of it. They've seen the best of the best. And so when they're looking to watch something, they have we all have, because I'll count myself in there, I think we all have a sort of a lexicon of the things that we like. The opening of Halloween,
Mm.
right? Sort of. I wouldn't say that it I guess it sets the tone, but it's a what's going to happen? What is this? A surprise. It's a surprise opening. The Lethal Weapon 2 is just instantly into the middle of an action scene.
And then the one we didn't mention there, which I know you've got a connection with, which has got an awesome cold open, is Pulp Fiction. So, yeah, it's like the one of the best cold opens ever. So, what is your connection with that particular film and that opening?
I was there.
You were there. So, why were
I
you
was
there? What were
I
you
was
doing?
in the cafe for the entire week they shot that. Except they took us all out when they opened the case. I won't
Oh,
tell you
right.
we all know it's actually as movie people what's in that case. Lights.
Yeah.
But I even got to sit and have somebody ask him that when we were at lunch.
Mm.
And again, let me just this is not a name drop situation because in that year in Los Angeles, I had heard of Reservoir Dogs, hadn't seen it yet because it hadn't come out on VHS, and I couldn't afford to go to the movies when I lived in LA. I was so broke. And my day job was being an extra in movies and paid $40 an hour when I was non-union and paid 60, a whopping 60, sorry, a day.
A day. Wow.
Yeah, 10 out, yeah, 8 out for 8 hours.
Mm.
And then when I went union, it was a whopping $60. But what you hoped for was that you could get multiple. This is when you could still afford to live in Los Angeles as a broke musician with a couple roommates. You would hope for more than one day, right? And eventually, my friends and I know it's shocking to hear, but I used to have more hair that would fill this entire frame.
Right.
Um, it was taken from me, but I was a big hair metal guy,
Mm.
leather pants, singing loud love songs. Anyway, but all my friends and I would we're like the long hair guys, and
Mm.
so if they needed a biker bar, they'd call all of us, and the casting director would be like, "Just grab all your friends, make my life easy."
Yeah.
Well, this was one of those gigs. It was just another 5 days. I'm like, cool, I'll make my rent, didn't know anything. I didn't even care. We never asked what the stuff was after
Mm.
a while. We were these jaded. We'd been doing it for 3 years. I was on Forrest Gump. I was on Full House. I was on In Living Color. I was on like everything in the world. And at some point, you're just like, where's my money? Where's the food? Because I was a musician, but deep inside, I was a filmmaker.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, this is what I wanted to do when I was a little kid. And so they're bringing us in, and when you're an extra, the thing you don't want to do is you don't want to be on screen, which sounds counterproductive. But if you are, that means you're going to be on the hot set. These are before LEDs. On the hot set all day. You don't know if the people are jerks. You don't know what it is. And so I'm like hiding, trying not to get picked because you still get paid.
Mm.
I had a book with me, The Damnation Game by Clive Barker, and I was just planning on reading that and making some money. And then when I got in there, I was like, "Oh, this is cool. This feels like a 70s movie." And then I'll try to make this as short as possible. I'm sorry. It was a great. It's a fun story. But anyway, I was an extra. I was in the movie. I'm in the booth. If you're looking at the door from where the register is, I'm the first booth on the left. I'm by myself. It was the one time in that year that I actually listened to what the AD told me to do. And when Tim Roth yells at me, "Get the F down," I popped down instead of like keeping my head up a little bit so I could laugh and see myself in the theater as a joke, because it just felt like this really interesting thing. And I got to see the whole Honey Bunny and go through the whole thing. But of course, taken out of context, that was the weirdest 5 days. It made no sense, right? Because it's just screaming and yelling and like weird. It felt like they were speaking Shakespearean in the sense that it wasn't really normal. It was normal dialogue, but it was this. It was sort of fantastical. But they were wearing shorts and the stuff, the bad clothes. But the most interesting thing to me is if you talk about what that film became, and I think it's a masterpiece. When I saw it in the theater, I was like, "Oh my god! Like this is the next guy." And I love Reservoir Dogs too, etc. But you got to imagine the year that was made, or the year before it came out, when we were making it, the very first shot of the very first day. Now I don't know if this is the first day of filming, but the first day in the cafe, the first shot is the last shot of the movie.
Right. Okay.
The first shot we shot that day was the last shot, where they walk up, look left, look right, and then walk out the door. And when John Travolta walked in with a mullet wig, wearing a Hawaiian shirt, like just cheap, and a gun in his thing, and this guy walked in, because at the time nobody really knew him. He had this Jerry curl wig. I'm like, what movie is this? And I'd been on low budget horror movies and stuff like that too, but this was like, John Travolta? That guy hasn't, and I love John Travolta. I think Blowout's, it's one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time.
Love Blowout.
And he is great, but at the time he was kind of,
he was on the heat, wasn't he, a bit? Yeah.
Well, he had, people make fun of that Look Who's Talking movie, but that thing made like hundreds of millions of dollars. But in general, he was not considered, Danny Zuko anymore, or like Saturday Night Fever. So I was like, oh my God, what is this movie I'm on? But just so funny to now realize you were there for this seminal cinematic moment that changed the 90s, I think. Reservoir Dogs lit the fire, but that thing,
that was one of the reasons a lot of the people on the film course I was on were on that course, because of films like that, because that had come out just as we'd, in our teen years, we'd seen it and gone, wow, I want to be a filmmaker.
Yeah, it was cool. My other friends were on the set too. One of my friends is one of the guys that has to run across. Anyway, it was fun to be there and to hear him talk about the recent. He had just gone to the premiere for True Romance, and he was talking about how they had put those little honey bears on the table, and he was excited that they understood the movie and stuff like that. But I didn't know who this guy was. And then he's on set and he's the director, and he was, he's exactly what people think. He's talking fast. Just give me this. But it was fun. It was fun. That was one of the ones that I paid attention, and I was like, I don't know what this is going to be, but I'm going to do my job.
It's a cool one to have on your CV, as I was an extra in.
That and Speed. Cool. That and Speed are my favorites.
Speed, love Speed. So then let's go back to you. You're the director, not Quentin. So do you give me an example? So I'm thinking about an indie filmmaker here, helping them. Give me an example of a time that you had to do some creative problem solving, because it's something we always have to do every single day. Have you got
every day
a monumental one that you remember and you think, oh my God, I can't believe I got this out, Jack?
I think that's everybody, everything that you do that like everybody wants to do happens before you get on set, for me. And you can hear this from the biggest of the big two with $100 million. I actually think when you break it down, because I don't know that there is any sexiness to being a director. I think there's a perceived sexiness to doing that. It's very hard work. We're the first ones in, we're the last ones out, and we work on it the longest. Well, if you write it, I mean, at this point, I'm writing and directing. I would direct someone else's stuff, but right now it's mine. And I think your job is really not just to stay the course and do all the things that you see on the BTS, but what they don't show you. And I just watched Wick is Pain. And if you want to see the non-sexy part of directing, there's a scene where they lost their, it's no spoiler or anything, but they lost their, it's about the making of John Wick. And it's on HBO right now in America. And you can rent it too, but it's really good, but it shows them going through the prep and then losing their money. The money that was going to finish the movie, so they had to find it. And I had such an intense, and my wife was looking at me and she's like, I'm like, see, it's not just me. These guys go through it too. If the question is what, one of the things that was huge, I would say, I think this happens more than anything. You write it on the page, even with experience. I write to produce, right? So I write to make it. I don't just like go with my vibes, man. I mean, that might be the first pass, but then we have to make the damn thing. And I'm like, okay, this is going to take if we get up and walk over there in the scene and like just to give it a little life, we're going to have to do multiple more setups. We have to do our crossover, all this stuff. I'm like, you know what? That's not where to spend that time. That's sort of the pre-production, which I think is so important. Not sexy, but I think that's where directing, where the rubber hits the road. But on the set, to me, if you've written it, I think you always need to have some thought of, maybe it's something you thought of before and you changed your mind. But to me, the biggest thing we had to do on this was, I wasn't going to have an 18-hour day. I wasn't going to have a 14-hour day. We had one very long, it was our night, the opening, because we hadn't really done a lot of stunts. I had a great stunt coordinator, but it was our first day of shooting, anyway. But everything else was 10 hours or under. And if you want that, then you're going to have to cut stuff, because the day becomes the day that it is. And I believe in making my day, even though there's technically nobody looking over my shoulder to do that. I'm trying to get a job where that will always be the case. So I try to work within those confines. And I think the thing that is the toughest is to wake up at like 5 a.m, get to the set at 6. Everybody gets there at 7. You're on the road for a 45-minute ride home after making this movie that on its face might seem like it's just people in a room, but you can attest to this. Like, we moved the camera a lot, and we tried to keep it as interesting and physically as you can, having somebody that's literally tied to the floor. So I was like, how can we make this interesting? And then you get home and you realize what you got to do the next day, based on what you just did, you can't move fast enough to do all that. So how do you rewrite it and keep it something that means something to you and is good and isn't just chop and not replace? And it usually means you have to address everything in the scene, because you can't just sometimes you can take a line or two out, but it's usually more than that. It's usually, this whole beat needs to change. How can I get this story beat but include it in something earlier? And then you have to also worry about, oh, well, how many minutes did I just lose? Am I going to end up with a 64-minute movie? So I think that was the biggest challenge. It's always a challenge, but this one was tough because it was just 6 of us, including me. So we had an AD, but he had just come on a couple days earlier and he totally kicked ass, but nobody knew more about the movie than me. He helped me he had the day on the day. He would help us make that day in the way that an AD does, but I needed the whole gigantic thing in my head. And I'm kind of wired for that, but this one definitely tested me. with the drive up, the drive back, and no one else to bounce it off of except myself. So it was a 12-day shoot. Should have been like a 16, 18-day shoot, but it was a 12-day shoot because that's what we had. And we kept them normal hours, and you can still make a movie that looks like our movie in those confines, but you're gonna lose a pint of blood on it for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I've been in similar situations where we've shot all day, and again, they're on those long days when your brain's frazzled and you're trying to figure stuff out. But we were on a long day. We got to the end of the day. There was a big sequence coming up that involved prosthetics, a knife stab, and all this kind of stuff. And we just looked at the clock. So my wife's my producer, so thankfully I've got someone to bounce this stuff off of. And we just realized we couldn't do what I'd written in my storyboards. That was going to have to go, be thrown out the window. But then the creative problem solving is, okay, it's going to be a static shot, and we're going to make the reason for that static shot is because this horrible moment's coming up, and we're going to kind of lull the audience into a false sense of security. And then now I can't even remember the version that I had on those storyboards, and it may have been really good, but I'm really pleased with what was in the film. So I think those creative moments, like you say, it's letting go of this idealized version of the film in your head and just leaning into, okay, this is all I've got. I've got 2 hours to do this. And prosthetics and all that stuff is always a ball ache. It's always takes ages, and it never looks right. And you unless you're really careful with it. But yeah,
I think your stuff looked amazing, though. Just FYI,
yeah, it's not. I mean, when I say it never looks right, I think it's not the fault of the people who are building it. It's me getting my head around.
They're never happy. They're never happy. We're never happy. That's the dirty little secret.
Yeah.
This idea that we're all giggling all day long and having, but it's like you don't understand how movies get made. I don't know. It's
well, we're for one of the films we did a knife stab in the eye, and the amount of effort that went into that, as far as making a head, getting the head painted, getting in the right position, getting just that, the amount of times we were stabbed, cutaways, getting all that little stuff for that one moment. And admittedly, it's an important moment in the film, but people don't realize the sort of pain and suffering that goes into that one shot. So yeah, it's
I'm with you, and I just remembered. I guess I put it out of my head. We were 3 days in. The prosthetics were being made because there were a few more effects in the movie than there are, and I had a young effects person who really impressed me. Not just in their abilities, that's okay, but just as a person, just sort of, and then completely basically sent me a text the day of the night that we were going to start the movie, and I can't do this anymore.
Oh, that's not good.
Sorry. No sorry. Just I'm having a difficult time and I can't do this anymore. I found out later that she had done that to somebody else too. Had I known, I would have never done that. But so here I am, already stressed out about day one of this adventure because we had lost our financing 2 weeks before the movie and had to push it a month. I was in 3 months of prep. Then that happens and I've got to re-prep. I mean, I was already about to fall apart, like physically, just like, oh my gosh. That's why that John Wick movie it hit home. I was like, see, honey, that's me. She's like, yep. And she does hair and makeup, so she understands. But there I was. I didn't tell anybody. I got to the set, and I made a call to a guy named Danny Dones, who did a movie called Clone Cops, and it's out everywhere. You should rent it. It's really fun and cool. They also made it here in Nashville independently, and I didn't even know that he was a prop guy. And I said, well, okay, I can't have my effects, so I have to rewrite the opening scene, which was already pretty complicated for a small movie. And of course, I wanted it to be even more complicated. I mean, even bigger, and it had to just knock people's socks off. So I'm like, great, I'm going into today with no effects person. I'm already stretched thin. I know effects a little bit. I could do it, but it's not going to be the same, right? And so I had to rethink, and then I just said, hey, do you have a this and that? And he ran it over, and I reconfigured it. And again, I don't really remember what we were going to do now, a year later, because that's the thing that people should know. And you can't really know until you make one, right? Now, you can even be a short too, just anything. You can't know what you write. And this is what naked writers should also understand. It's not always that somebody wants to change your work or your words. We don't want to change our work and our words usually. But the circumstance of it's the old adage, you make the movie 3 times, when you're writing it, when you're shooting it, and when you're editing it. And everyone will tell you, I've never heard anybody say it's the exact same thing we had in the script from beginning to end. So that tells you something, right? With the most money, with the most experience, the greatest of the greats. And a lot of people don't really see that. So when things start to go wrong, I would say, just remember on your first film, just remember out there, this happens to everybody. So you just have to choose an answer. It doesn't even really matter if it's the best answer. In the middle of the storm, you're like, I just need to get into that shelter. So the effects person dropping out was definitely, I mean, the money falling through is never is never fun. But thankfully, a friend that owned a much larger company that made much bigger movies that I had been working for in some capacity, editing trailers, which I also do, and things like that. I just made a Hail Mary call to him, on the day that I realized if I don't, I have to pull the plug today, or I have to get somebody to say yes. And he was he believed in me. He read the script and he was like, I like it, but I'm doing this because I think you can pull this off. And so then there's that pressure, right? Because I want to make sure that I deliver for them. And he told me I have. So there you go. But at the time, you're like, I got this. I've got all the pieces. And then you walk in the door. You don't even get to walk in the door. Right before you walk in the door, one person that is the linchpin of that evening, it was as if the stunt person totally showed up, rocked it, didn't. But I mean, then how do you do your opening stunt sequence? A bunch of guys going, hey, fall on the ground. And then how good is that going to be? So those moments are the toughest. I mean, with all the effects that you had in your movie and the sort of the studio sort of main scene where a lot of it took place, that's have you told people, I mean, I know you've done an episode about it, but when you were doing that one, what was maybe if I miss it, you just tell people to go listen to that one. But what was the thing for you on that one? Because you had a whole bunch of moving parts. My first feature had 4 female leads in one room in a bar that we built. And that was a lot because you're watching, and we only had one camera. And so we were watching, it was back in the DVX 100A days, and it was trying to keep track of 4 faces, and I think we got that scene because you can't watch, we didn't have time for playback, let's just sit down and watch it back, and everybody sit down and have a coffee. And no. So were there anything that I can feel camaraderie, like the thing
I
that was
mean,
like,
yeah, I think
people love the horror stories.
I was insane to do something with 8 or 9 characters in. That's just stupid when I mean, it's I'm glad we did it, but I do remember on the first day sitting there thinking, what have I done? I've got all these characters, like you say, all these moving parts. I've got to worry about covering everyone. I've got to worry about the line. Am I going to cross the line when all these people are talking to each other? I've got to worry about all their individual performances. Are they all going to do what they need to do for the sequence? We shot it on one camera, so there was a lot of moving about. But I don't know. I think something I have talked about in another episode is what I did. What I wish I'd done was rehearsed more, because I think what I ended up doing was doing a master shot on the first day of the first 20 minutes of the film, and I think that was for me. That wasn't for the film. I don't think I've used any of that. I think maybe actually I have used some of that as security camera footage, but I think actually what I'd done is what you were talking about, is I was in that storm and I was like, okay, I could try and beautiful mind this and figure it out as I go along, or I could
Yeah.
film this wide while it's playing out, while everyone's going to then figure out where they're stood. I can tweak performance. I can make sure it all flows. I can sit here and I can then re-storyboard this first 20 minutes of the film, and it'll help me. And thank God I did it, but I should have done that in rehearsals. I should have done that. If we'd had the money for rehearsals, then we'd have done it in rehearsals. But
that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about, which is in the moment you did what a director's supposed to do, which is I can't talk about the past. We didn't have that. Of course, if I had the opportunity, I would have chosen that. But clearly that wasn't either on the table or time or whatever it is. It wasn't possible. Of course, that's the best version, right? Where we all sit down and have lunch and we talk about the characters for a week. And you made the director. That's a director, right? The director went, the DP might have been like, why are we doing it for so long?
He did.
A lot of the things we do are sort of not tricks, but we have to find a way, right? Within reason, reasonably, you have to be kind, you have to build, but you have to find a way to get the thing done. Like not the movie, but just like anything, any beat, any moment. You have to figure out a way to get that done, because we all know there's a point in movies where people just go, ugh, and they shut off. You're just trying to avoid that. It's like Mario Kart, like you're just trying to, you don't want to smash into the wall or whatever. So I think that's brilliant. I sort of did that we have I would say the last act is one big scene, and it has lots of inflection points and stuff going on, because I didn't want to just have people yelling at each other the whole time. But I actually am not a fan of I understand the value of masters, but in this case, I knew I was barely going to use any of it. But I wanted the actors to not think of it as words in their head or words on a page, their feet moving, their hands, the things they had being in the situations they're in, the way that they're physically held back or not. I like to keep things as fluid as possible. And it was 15 pages of dialogue, and we did it over 2 or 3 days, but it was like a lot. And I didn't want to do the master because I was like, I'm all about faces and mediums, and we're so confined, and I wanted to stay really confined. I wanted it to feel claustrophobic. And so I did the same thing. I just played that whole thing out, just hating every second of it, but I knew there was a value to it. A 10-minute take, let's say, up into a certain point when everything changes or moves or whatever. And we do that, and they're like, you want to do it again? I'm like, nope. But no, I'm not trying to capture. And I even said it to the actors, because they were like, are we doing this all in one? I'm like, no, I want everybody to get their sea legs. I want everybody to feel just sort of the energy. I need to see what you're going to do, so we don't have the time to go and break it down into 50 little pieces like we should, but we don't have that time. So I think that's brilliant. We all would have, could have, should have.
It was at the time, it was a panic decision, but now I'm going to retitle it as a brilliant move. It was a masterstroke.
We can't give ourselves that credit. Those are the movie gods, right?
Yes.
But that's our job.
I hope that was useful. If you're interested in learning more about micro and low budget film production, I suggest you check out How to Make an Indie Feature for $10,000 with Sean and Taylor King. They've pretty much got their own little production company and studio set up, and make a film every year, get them out there and actually make profit on them. So it's a really interesting chat. See you on the next one.